Hey, what's up, people?
Hi, everybody. We're back.
Welcome to the Zod Drea podcast, where we give you all kinds of entertainment as usual.
And updates on what's going on in Arizona.
So, of course, we always have great guests if you don't know. If you're not following the show, then obviously you're not up to anything. So last week we got tear gassed. You know, that was fun.
Good
what
times.
Else? Yeah.
Yeah, they were great times. Yeah. But we also got to, before that, we got to really experience a great time with the community to show the support that we have for people here that oppose any type of oppression and discrimination. And that was a great time with everybody.
Yeah, no, that was a really great time. And if you haven't seen it, make sure you go back to the last week's show. I mean, we had a couple of them. We had Go Topless. We had what else? The whole rally. I mean, we have a lot of things that have been going on this weekend. So we now have to slow it down a little bit. We are now in a new undisclosed location. Ignore everything you see, except for us.
Shiny objects, don't get distracted.
But no, we have a great guest now. So who do we have coming up?
We have George Torres. He is the founder of Sofrito for Your Soul, and we're really excited to be talking with him soon.
I mean, where's he from?
Brooklyn.
So if you've never been to Brooklyn, you guys are missing out on a lot of culture, a lot of great people, and George is definitely one of them. So I guess we might as well get into it, right?
Let's do it.
All right. So without further ado, you going to say his name?
Oh, am I going to do it? George Torres here.
George Torres, thank you, right? Boom.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your crazy schedule of being out here in Phoenix and being on our podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Seriously, this is dope.
No doubt. And tell me, how have you liked the Southwest so far?
So my West Coast experience in general is pretty limited. So being out west is pretty new for me over the last year or two. This experience here has been completely life-changing for me in terms of what I've experienced here, the kind of people that I'm meeting and connecting with. I'm doing a grassroots tour of Phoenix right now, just to find out about Black and Brown art spaces, to find out about people who are doing real community building here. I want to find out about politics, and I landed here just as everything kind of exploded on the national scene. So I'm really I'm all in. I'm all into what I'm experiencing right now.
Got it. Anything that you've visited, any other parts of the county or the state that since the time you've been out here?
So I started off my tour at McDowell Market, and I got a chance to spend some time with Palabras Bookstore, Shug Coffee Shop. I spent a great amount of time speaking to local artists at Galeana 39. Curtis, a big shout out to Curtis for allowing me to come in there and just kind of park for the day and just vibe, do some Facebook Lives with some artists. And then I took a road trip down to Nogales.
How was that?
That was so far the highlight of the trip. I got a chance to experience a different narrative. I'll say that, to start off the conversation. I got to see something completely different than what I expected to see in Phoenix.
See, now that's just it. You being Latino from the East Coast, and now you've been able to kind of get a glimpse of Latinos from the West Coast, Southwest. What do you think are some of the differences that you may have noticed between the two, considering you've grown up as one, but just, coming out here for a minute, seeing how the other lives? What kind of things do you take out from that?
So it's always a shared experience, right? Because Black and Brown share the same experiences across the board in the country. From racial discrimination to police brutality. I mean, we're sharing a lot of similar experiences. How we work together to fight those varies from place to place. The first time I came to speak on the West Coast, over here out west, it was very interesting to me because I came here with my Puerto Rican swag. I just did a whole East Coast tour. I did some Chicago, and I was just I was it. I was on fire. I had confidence. So I get in front of this crowd at a local university in California, and I bombed. I bombed really bad because I'm talking about the Young Lords. I'm talking about a lot of East Coast centric things, Puerto Rican, Caribbean,
right?
And obviously the population in the West Coast is mostly Chicanos, Central, South American, and it didn't vibe. And the learning that I took back from that was that we have similar movements all over the country, right?
Right.
So for our Young Lords and Black Panthers, there was also the Brown Berets, which was a Chicano movement.
And they have some of them here, yeah.
So lack of research, not really knowing my audience, really caused me to kind of take a step back and really dig deep into what other movements look like across the country. So now I come to Arizona, Mexico, with a different perspective, with a little bit more information about some of the political movements. I'm looking at what's happening at the national scene here in terms of like what's happening with the current political climate.
Right.
And seeing what's happening on the ground here. And coming to Phoenix, originally I'm thinking to myself, like, I heard about Phoenix. I remember when Chuck D made the song about Arizona back in the days.
Yep, back in '91, yeah.
Most recently, like the last couple of years, when I was doing my podcast on Blog Talk Radio, I explored some of the Arizona banning of the books and the curriculums for Black and Brown studies. So I came in here thinking that, I don't even know why I'm going to Arizona right now. I don't even know why NCLR was doing a conference in Arizona.
Right.
But when I got here, I was, just talking to people at the conference, really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that's happening under the national radar.
Right.
And I thought that it would be very interesting to come back to Arizona to kind of like showcase some of those stories.
That's dope. And I also wanted to know, because that's crazy that you're getting that experience, because I remember when I first came out here, believe it or not, funny story, I was actually on tour with a bunch of rappers, and Chuck D was actually Public Enemy was one of them, and that was
shout out to Chuck. He was my neighbor in Long Island.
Yeah, see, LI, that's it.
That's cool.
And Chuck was Chuck and Flav, it was all Public Enemy. We came over here to Arizona, and it was funny when we were on tour. The one thing that I wanted them to do out in Arizona, my first visit here, which was August of '98, which was burning.
Ooh, yeah.
But was by the time I get to Arizona, and it was just, even for me, my first time being out here was so powerful because I knew what it meant, and to see, someone who has come out here the first time, or I guess, is this your first time in Arizona?
No, this is my second.
Second time,
Yeah,
someone who's new to it, it is eye-opening, Then my next time I came here was 2008, and it was opened up my eyes even more to where,
difference, yeah.
and the big difference. Do you think, and speaking of, this being your second time, do you think that you see a difference between the first time you were here and the second time?
Absolutely. So the first time I came here, I came for NCLR's conference, representing the Cypress Hills Local Development Corp., which is an organization that pretty much serves the underserved communities in New York with affordable housing and college success programs, etc. So I'm a new board member there. So I came out here for the second time to represent them. Well, the first time was in Orlando, Florida, but this year was in Arizona. So I came out here and I talked to a lot of people in the political realm, right? I talked to a lot of organizations that are doing grassroots work, but everybody there is really polished. It's like it's a showcase. Everybody's trying to get their agenda filled. Everybody's trying to win awards. Everybody's trying to get grants. Everybody's like connecting with each other. So it's a big, I don't have the word for it. I don't want to say what I want to say, but
it's fine. You can say whatever you want on here.
It's a big circle jerk.
Yeah.
Of community organizing. That people coming together and they're not really being genuine in a lot of ways. And no offense to any organization out there, but it's just
right.
it's not showing really what's happening in the community. It's just what's on paper. It's what's going to get you the grant. And having the side conversations. When you go to conferences, one of the most interesting things that you see at a conference is that you go to conferences and you have drinks with people at the bar, and that's where the real community building happens, right? That's where we get together and we start talking about the real problems and the objectives. We talk about the political climate. We talk about which politicians are really representing, who's not. And when I went into that scene, I started hearing about organizations out here, like the Environmental Defense Fund. I started hearing about Moms for Clean Air. I started hearing about the art scene out here. I started hearing about the Chicano zine movement, and I started listening to all this stuff. And I'm like, that's all happening out here, like for real. Like there's this underground movement, and it's not so underground. And I said to myself, I gotta come back. So I met a really great artist out here named Zulema Rodriguez. Who upcycles and gives new life to her handbags and stuff like that. And she introduced me to a bevy of artists out here that are politically engaged, that are building infrastructure for the arts movement here. And that's kind of where it happens, right? When people get together for art, poetry, literature, that's where people have those intellectual conversations. So I kind of wanted to put myself in the middle of that. So I self-funded the trip. I had a couple of sponsors on deck, but they were too slow getting back to me. I got really anxious, and I said, I'm going out there, and I'll catch them on the next one. So I came out here, and here I am. In the middle of it, I've had literally like 20 meetings this week. I I've gotten to do everything from tour a local Phoenix clinic called Patch and find out what they're doing with all volunteer staff and how many people they're serving. I got a chance to visit the border in Nogales to find out about what's happening there and just hear the tales of two different, like one city that's divided by a border. Like, that's a very unique story. So I kind of, I literally went to the park, sat down at a bench and started talking to the elders, you know.
And then let me ask you about that experience for when you went to the border.
Okay.
And was that your first time coming to the border?
I've never seen the border. I've never crossed the border. You know, anything I flew over everything that I've ever been to. So I've never been in a situation where I actually saw a point of entry in the country, touched a gate, you know, literally talk to somebody through a gate, just say hi to them. I had this moment when we went to this like dark corner where there was no border patrol of the gate, and for those of you who never seen the gate before, it's literally like huge bars, like basically like right, it's like you could see through, but it's not enough for anybody to get through it, right?
Right.
And there was a man at a local furniture store in Mexico, in Nogales, Mexico. And he just came outside, he looked, I was taking pictures, doing video on the other side, like kind of documenting my experience. And he just looked at me, just nodded and I nodded. And it was like an unspoken story, like, you know, he's over there like, I know you're looking at me, but I'm good, I have a business here. Like, you know, it was like, it's not what you think it is, you know? There's not like hordes of people like trying to climb the fence or it's a working community. There's people crossing over to buy goods to bring back to their families. There are people communicating through the fence because they can't visit each other or they can't. And what struck me the most is that there were people who were talking through the fence that couldn't even embrace each other. Like they can't even like put their hands through the gates to hug or anything like that. So all those things like really kind of like, you know, they've impacted me. I'm all over the place because that's exactly how I feel right now. I'm really all over the place emotionally, spiritually. I'm just kind of like taking this all in. I've been writing all day, like just kind of like the experiences, everything from walking into stores and shopping to talking to the elders to seeing how kids like play in the streets. Like it's all very overwhelming right now.
But did you see any bad hombres?
I did not. I did not see any bad hombres. I didn't see anything that's the current national narrative. I didn't see anything representative of that at all. I'll be honest with you. I felt safer. I felt safer at Nogales than I did in Phoenix.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I've been around the local community here, and I've gone to like the local stores and, you know, supermarkets or whatever, and I've seen, you know, shady characters in the parking lot, whatever. I didn't see any vagrants. I didn't see any homeless people. I didn't see anybody gambling in the street. I didn't see any prostitutes. I didn't see anything that you would normally think that the reason why America would invest in such a barrier to divide a town and a culture. You know, so I didn't see a justification for it at all.
No justification for building a new and improved wall.
Yeah, exactly. Wall. And that was the first thing I said when our friend Stephanie Bermudez, who's a local startup influencer, and her friend Laszlo actually took us for a tour. And when I first saw the wall, my first view of the wall, I just said like, what, or the gate or whatever they call the fence, or I'm like, why do they need to build something else? Like, I just didn't understand. I don't understand what's that doing.
Well, I mean, the one thing is it's meant to divide, and that's about it. But yo, can we hold on for that 1 minute? Absolutely. Because we're going to get into and find out the unification between East and West. A lot more from George Torres coming to you. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Zod.
And I'm Drea.
And we want you to check out the Zod and Drea podcast every Tuesday.
Where can everybody find us at?
You can always check us out on www.zodanddrea.com.
Where else?
You can always check us out also on Facebook at Zod and Drea.
Instagram?
Zod and Drea.
Snapchat?
Zod and Drea.
YouTube?
Zod and Drea.
I see a pattern.
So if you haven't caught that, catch us at Zod and Drea on all the social networks. But also, make sure you subscribe to the Zod and Drea podcast. Where?
At zodanddrea.com.
And also on YouTube and iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. We're coming for you.
Let us know what you think. And if you want to be a guest, reach out to us.
And put all of your input into whatever our topics are for the week. So we hope to check you out and see you there.
Bye.
All right. And
we're back with George.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you want to ask George? What is it you want to ask?
So what I want to ask are just some of your experiences to give us some ideas of how Latinos can unify from that you've experienced then from the East Coast and kind of bring that to the West Coast.
So where I grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn, right? Brownsville in East New York, which is traditionally probably the most underserved community in New York City, right? Worst murder rate in New York, drugs, the crack era was
Brownsville's no
crazy.
joke.
No, and it still isn't.
Yeah.
It's the only place in New York that you could actually get a 3-bedroom apartment for under $1,000.
What?
Because
That exists?
Nobody wants to be there.
Nobody wants to be there. And big shout out to people in Brownsville. There's a lot of community builders trying to change that.
Yeah, for real.
Unfortunately, we're facing and where Black and Brown unity come into place right now is in the whole gentrification movement, right? So they're pushing Black and Brown out of communities.
Yeah.
They're depriving us of the educational resources we need to get our kids in college and to get financial literacy, et cetera. And with the housing push. They're displacing us where people in Black and Brown communities are having to live generationally in single household.
Yeah.
In houses where there's multiple generations living together
Exactly.
because they can't afford to live independently. So the work that I do with the Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation is around affordable housing, making sure there's affordable units in every new unit that they bring into the community, that they actually invest in the arts and science and technology and STEM and all that kind of stuff. I'm currently working on a couple of projects that incorporate that I've written myself, curriculum that I've written for CUNY and for local organizations. So I'm really hands-on with that kind of thing. What's happening now is that in New York has always been pretty Black and Brown friendly. In other words, we've always had shared experiences. I grew up in Brownsville.
Yeah.
And like I told you before the show, I've been in situations where when I grew up in Brownsville, a lot of people say, oh, your blue eyes, white skin or whatever, you must have got beaten up, they must have picked on you or whatever. I got bullied. I'm not going to even front. I got bullied, but I didn't get bullied because of the color of my skin or because I was Latino. We were the first Latino family in the Howard Projects. My grandmother was a community builder she was the founding director of Meals on Wheels in Brooklyn. She gave 35 years of her life to serving Latino and African American elderly. So I walked through those streets with her, and my grandmother had so much respect that everybody knew us. Like, we were good. The bullying I experienced was just kids being kids, I'm gonna beat you up because you looked at my girl, dumb shit. That minutia of communities that happens, right? So we always had that shared experience. My personal journey with working with my people has to do with the fact that I was a victim of a racial incident that was tied to a major racial incident that polarized New York, and that was the death of Michael Griffith. I got jumped the same night, about 20 minutes apart, about 2 miles away, in the same community, by a bunch of white people who thought that we didn't belong for no other reason other than the fact that we were Latino. Now, my friend was Dominican, so he was a little darker than me. Right. But the difference here is it wasn't not so much color, but as it was culture as well, because I was wearing a sheepskin. I was dressed in hip hop clothes. This was the birth of hip hop. This was 1985.
Yeah, this is real.
Looking pretty sharp.
So I'm wearing a shirling. I got my Kango on or whatever. We're walking through a neighborhood and we got jumped by a bunch of guys with motorcycle jackets. So you get the visual, right? So that thrust me not to go. I mean, they got off on it. Obviously they had the money, the lawyers, etc. They got away with it, but it put me in a situation where I was mentored. The people who came to our assistance for legal situations to make sure that we got justice in the case were a bunch of local community builders that were Black Panthers and Young Lords. So that put me in a situation now that I'm like a unfathered, child. My dad wasn't in the picture. My mom's single. My mom had her own problems. My grandmother was raising me. So I'm in this situation where I just got jumped. I dropped out of school because I was going to be a young dad. And now I'm in the mix of all these powerful community builders. So what happens? From the age of 15 to 19, I'm getting indoctrinated by them. They're teaching me about civil rights era. I'm hanging out with Felipe Luciano. I'm hanging out with Denise Oliver from the Black Panthers. I'm hanging out with elders, poets from the New Rican Poets Cafe, and Miguel Algarin. So I'm surrounded by all these incredible historic figures that are still alive. I had the opportunity to kind of grow with them. So when I get to my undergrad experience, I started a website that allowed me to kind of foster and kind of tell those stories. And that's kind of where I'm at today. I'm just trying to take that to another level. at this point with video and experiences like what I'm experiencing right now in Phoenix.
And do you think that a lot of people from here can benefit from that? I'm not sure exactly how technologically advanced the Latino community is here. I know the education system here is absolutely horrible. I think we're 48th in the country.
Pretty much.
So if we're 48th in the country, you can imagine people of color and the marginalized are even worse off than anything. And trying to pick up on some of those mentorships is a little harder out here, I think, for some of the people, because they don't have that outreach. I mean, it'd be a little different if you're in California, you went out into, the Panthers up there, you know what I'm saying? But they are trying out here. I mean, they are trying to do what they can, but using your experience, it'd be nice to have, I guess, that type of mentality and that hope. The fact that we out here. I mean, growing up in New York City I'm sure is like just a completely different experience. I mean, when I lived there, it was a different experience, even just from New Jersey, and that was just a river away. You know. So, what do you think, or advice that you would be able to give some of the kids here that are coming up, that are Chicano, coming from a Puerto Rican? What would be some of the advice that you think you can give to them?
I think the first thing, the reason why I'm here, besides telling the story, is the fact that I leveraged my website into a social media consultancy.
And what's your website?
It's Sofrito for Your Soul.
Okay.
The company is called Sofrito Media Group.
Gotcha.
And what I've done in New York is I've actually done work for a lot of cultural organizations to help amplify their existence in the country. You know, so the National Puerto Rican Day Parade, I've managed the social media for them for 4 years.
Wow.
I work with the Center of Puerto Rican Studies of Hunter College. I work with I was one of the founding directors of Latinos in Social Media, which is the largest national group right now. So I came to Arizona specifically to find out how I could foster social media presence for organizations that are struggling. So everything I just mentioned to you, all the organizations I went to see, is to talk to them about how they're showing up in social media, how they're making their businesses global, how they can compete even though they're in this local dark corner of the country, so to speak. How they can actually show up on a global platform and express their ideas and remix what they're doing here. I mean, there's a lot of fantastic things happening here. So it's not exclusive to Phoenix. It's happening everywhere in the country,
right?
But we just don't know about it.
But going back to what mentorship, I think you brought up an important point. When you had your experience of going to these national organizations, going to these balls and these events, and then you can compare it to then who's been mentoring you then on a local scale. How do you see those two types of mentoring, if you will, could be bridged together so that it could have a larger impact versus this kind of divisiveness of, well, we'll only mentor you if you do this, but no, you don't really have to do that. We can mentor you doing this way. Any advice on that?
Yeah, so one of the things I will say is that this particular generation is very fortunate because we have tools that make everything borderless, right? So Chicanos here could talk to people in Mexico and talk about community initiatives. You could reach out to pretty much anybody you want. From here, you could LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all global platforms. So you could reach out to anybody, and if your idea, if what you're trying to accomplish is aligned with them. I mean, I get people all the time. I got people in Chicago. I got people in Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Georgia, who reach out to me for advice all the time. And we have that platform now, so we could reach out to each other and find out what we learn from each other and share those learning experiences and help each other grow. And everything works in, what happens in New York doesn't necessarily going to work in Phoenix.
Right, it's true.
But if you could just, it's the discipline, it's the fact that you're getting exposed to different ideas and then you yourself remix them. I mean, just like I said, you have people here that are upcycling. They're taking stuff that pretty much people have kind of chucked aside and it doesn't have value anymore, and they kind of renew it, give it new life, and bring new value to it. So that's the kind of thing that you have to do with your social persona. You have to go out there and you have to do it. I dropped out of school. I mean, I should be every statistic in the book. I grew up in the worst neighborhood. I dropped out of both high school and college, and I speak at Ivy League universities today. So you get what I'm saying? And that's because I actually surrounded myself with people. My grandmother always taught me, you are going to be the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. That's really at the end of the day. So I made sure that I elevated the people that I was around through mentorship. I have what I call a board of directors, right? So I have my creative My creative mentors, which is Lydia Nicole, who's an actress, and Victor Cruz, who's an actor, my acting coaches. I have Felipe Luciano, who's my political conscious. I have Papo Swiggity Santiago, who's my partner and my yin yang type of, like he's the really creative guy. I'm creative, but I'm more the business guy. So I'm like Russell Simmons, and he's most deaf. So so we have that. So you have to kind of like find people like that before I monetized my business 12 years in. So I subsidized my work for 12 years because I didn't have a model to go after. And then this guy named Gary Vaynerchuk comes out of the blue with Wine Library TV, and he starts doing all these things about Twitter and whatever. And I'm like, everything he was talking about, I swear to you, I was already doing. But I didn't have any models. When I saw him, I was like, that's what I'm doing, but I'm doing it in the Latino community. So then I started looking at other people. I started looking at Darren Rouse in Australia, and I started looking at Chris Brogan, and I started looking at like all different types of community leaders. Felipe Luciano, for example. I started looking at all these different people and what they were doing in their space, and I just said media is the way to go. If you can't, when I couldn't get hired by a radio station to do radio, I created my own radio station. When I needed a poetry book to do what I created my website. I created all the media myself. I learned how to edit. I learned how to shoot video. I learned how to edit video myself because I want to create my own media, and I didn't want to let money be a roadblock. So I found the right mentors. I watched YouTube videos like crazy, and I just learned to do what I needed to do. So that's the type of self-determination that the Young Lords and the Black Panthers and the Brown Berets talked about.
Right.
Is going out there and just having access to the resource so that you could actually build something.
To be self-sustainable.
Absolutely. Yeah. So.
I mean, it's kind of funny, you say about turning something old and making it into something new and valuable. Absolutely. And I mean, if anything, and anybody knows about our people, that's the one thing through history that we do. Like, we will make gold
Absolutely.
Out of trash in a second. So
hip hop.
It's hip hop.
Hip hop is the perfect example.
It's a perfect example.
Hip hop is the perfect example of Black and Brown. There's 3 examples that were just illustrated by actually one of my fraternity brothers in LatinoRebels.com. And he illustrated 3 examples of Black and Brown unity through history. The first one was in the 1800s, and it was with Arturo Schomburg, and Emilio Betances, and all the Puerto Rican freedom fighters and the Cuban freedom fighters coming together to try to liberate us from Spain, right? That's the first example. This happened all during the Harlem Renaissance. Okay, this Puerto Rican Black and Brown coming together during the Harlem Renaissance to liberate nations. Okay, that's the first example. Second example, civil rights movement. Again, Brown Berets on the West Coast. Chicago and New York with the Young Lords, and the Black Panthers on the same thing. Same as the Young Lords. Same, pretty much same principles, same agenda, same manifesto, but addressing different aspects of it. And Black and Brown was all in that. And then you have hip hop, right? Hip hop happens, and I'm very fortunate to know pioneers that I grew up with. In the hip hop industry. And just to see that go from culture, there's such an untold story about the Latino influence in hip hop.
People don't know, DJs, like Crazy Legs is no joke. I mean,
one of the first DJs was Latino. One of the first DJs was Latino. Breakdancing was almost exclusively Latino. Okay, graffiti same. Graffiti was very blended. You know what I'm saying? Was. Rapping was definitely all black.
The 4 elements at the time.
But the 4 elements were very intertwined. You know what I mean? And then when you look at it now, it's ambiguous. Like, you listen to Fat Joe, you can't tell. Like, you can't tell he's Latino by listening to him. You listen to Joel Ortiz, you can't tell he's. You can't tell that he's Black or brown. Like, it's.
I've been putting her onto some Joel Ortiz recently. We've been saying Latino.
Joel's definitely dope.
Man, but you know what? We are running out of time right now, man. But we were really honored to just have you on our show, and we're really glad that you came and to stop by the Zod Drea. Actually, I guess we came and stopped by you. The Zod Drea podcast, right? But hopefully, next time, man, we'll have a longer conversation. You come back again.
Come back.
I will,
all right.
Definitely. Thank you.
No doubt. Yo, so what do you think? Huh? Did you learn anything?
This was great.
So we big shout out to George Torres for stopping by, and shout out to Zulema for her upcycling. Make sure you check it out. We're gonna put up her website up there. See, it's right there.
And again, let us know your thoughts. You want to contribute at all to this conversation? You want to reach out to George? We'll have his information as well.
Yeah, so make sure you just check us out at Zod and Drea on everything. Instagram, Facebook. I mean, check us out on iTunes, YouTube. Every social media outlet you can find, we are there. And we just added Tumblr and SoundCloud, so make sure you check us out there too.
So reach out, be safe out there, and then we'll see you soon, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe soon. Or sooner or later.
Who knows? All right. Peace.
Bye.